Good morning, everyone. We're, oh gosh, it's Sunday morning. It's 10 a.m. in Texas. It is 8 a.m. on the West Coast for the early Sunday morning risers. Glad to have you here. We're just going to wait another minute or two and see if, give anybody else a chance to pour their coffee and join.
Sounds good.
While we're waiting, if you'd like to introduce yourself in the chat, I am more than welcome to do that. We're very excited this morning to have Dog Jeannie from Camarillo, California joining us to talk all about nose work in the shelter environment. And this is a volunteer run program there.
Yep,
And
excited to be here.
thanks for joining us, Jeannie. I'm really excited to have your level of energy and positivity to start Volunteer Appreciation Week.
I am thrilled to be here. So I'm looking forward to sharing this and taking some questions and having a fun, productive chat.
Awesome. Whenever you're ready, if you want to go ahead and share your screen and get started.
Okay.
I can't wait to hear about this.
All right. So very excited. Thank you for having me. My name's Jeannie Tuttle. My company's Dog Jeannie. I'm a volunteer at Ventura County Animal Services. And I started the nose work enrichment program there after I became a certified nose work instructor. So we'll talk a little bit about that and how this activity of nose work is so helpful for shelter animals. So let me go ahead and get my screen ready. And let's see here. Share that. Don't really want to see that. Okay. Let me get this in presentation mode. All right, guys. Hopefully you can see my screen now. Yeah?
Yep, looks great.
Okay, wonderful. So let's go and let's talk about how we can help dogs using canine nose work enrichment. So the first thing I kind of wanted to talk about is what is canine nose work, in case anybody's not familiar with it. Looking very forward to sharing my information after. If you have any questions, I'd love to take those. Let me just dock this over here. Having a little, oh, I guess you can see my whole screen, huh? I guess you can see the Zoom.
No, it looks great.
Okay. So canine nose work is a fun activity. It's searching. It's helping the dogs reconnect with their inner drive to hunt. And you can do it for fun, or you can compete, like with nose work. It's open to all breeds of dogs and temperaments. It doesn't have to, I mean, I teach this privately, I teach this in group classes, and I teach this pro bono as a volunteer at the shelter. And you'll be so amazed in how a little Chihuahua mix can just kill this sport, over any Malinois. So it's open to all breeds and temperaments. Older dogs can do it. Reactive dogs who don't normally get taken to things can do it. So it's just a wonderful, wonderful activity. We don't typically run dogs that are aggressive with humans, so that is our one exception. Nose work's been around since like 2006. The top detection people in the country got together and started this initially, and they founded the National Association of Canine Scent Work, NACSW, and that's the instructor course that I took, studying with the top detection people in the country. And then there are some other groups that have also started doing nose work, but in my training, I'm a specialist in the methodology of NACSW, and they all have different nuances. So if you're familiar with nose work, then just know that I was trained in the NACSW technique. And for the dog, there's no prior skills required. So it's kind of cool. My some of my students go, "Oh, my dog's not good enough for nose work." And I'm like, all they need is a nose. You're good to go. Um, they need a ride to class, and, and that's about it. So it's a fantastic thing for shelter dogs. So we'll get into that. Just to kind of give you a little bit of the background for nose work. You can search nose work in containers. You can do it on vehicles. You can do interiors, and you can also do exteriors. So we start out with container searches with the shelter dogs, and you can actually, continue to make it harder and harder if the dog is still there. So if you're moving a lot of dogs out of your shelter quickly, then you may just kind of stay in the container section of that. Okay. So this is an important point, is talking about the philosophy of canine nose work. First of all, step 0 is safety. And step 1 is fun. We really want the dogs to have fun. So we step back and we let them show us how scent work works for them. And I know in sheltering, we always want to do our best to get the dogs ready to be adopted. We want to get some skills on them, and sit, stay, come down, things that would help them get adopted. So nose work is the opposite of all of that. So we're not giving the dog commands and teaching them something. We are letting them do what they do, and we are learning from them. So it's really humbling, and it's so much fun. If you're a dog geek and you like to watch behavior, the nose work is for you, for sure. So, we're constantly trying to get them to conform to what we want. And in the world, to feel safe and stable, you need, 1, your physiological needs met, shelter, food, roof over your head. You need sleep, which sometimes can be hard in the shelter environment, and you need choice. And choice is one of the things that is harder to come by in the shelter, because the dogs don't have choice over when they get out, when they eat, and things like that. So nose work brings back that level of choice, and it's just addicting once you start doing it. And it's so healing for the dogs to get to work puzzles and use their mind. And they get really tired, even though there's no cardio. It's like taking a really hard test. You're like, oh, I'm exhausted, but you didn't run. So doing nose work is mentally stimulating for the dogs, and it tires them out, and it helps them focus. So it's an obedience-free zone. So we don't come to the start of the search line for searches, and I'll show you some environments in a second. We don't do sit, watch, touch. We don't do any obedience. Just let the dog be. If we need to move the boxes or something, we will manipulate the environment. Like if a dog's having trouble with the search, I might move the boxes, but I will not move the dog. The dog gets to move on their own, and I'll show you a video in a second. So it builds confidence. We've had some really shy dogs who come into the search area and just pancake. They're terrified. And we just let them chill. And then the next week when we bring them out, they're sniffing around a little. And then over the course of time, they start searching, and we see this healing in those dogs. Dogs that are crazy, can't focus, they zero in on this. So it's really beneficial. And I'm a big fan, as you can tell. So it's also great to help volunteers and the team understand their hone your observation skills. Like, when did the dog first catch the scent and things like that. So I'll show you a couple of videos. In the world, when I teach my classes, not at the shelter, we can take people of all ages and abilities. So it's not a really hard sport physically, because you're just letting the dog work basically and trying to stay out of the way. When you work with canine nose work, this is my odor kit. We teach dogs to find birch, anise, or clove. But in the shelter, we pretty much just start, and even outside of the shelter, we start with the primary reinforcer, which is a great treat. A treat that's not too crumbly, but pretty smelly, but not too juicy and wet. Like a piece of chicken would get the box all messy. So you got to kind of find that sweet spot of what treat is best to use. So I just kind of wanted to let you know. how far the sport can go. So it is fun for the dogs, and it's fun for staff because we're teaching the staff to observe the dogs doing their natural behavior of hunting and finding scents, and then they self-reward because when they find the treat in the box, then they get to eat it. So it really does help prevent deterioration. You know, you get some huskies in a shelter, they need something else to do. It's wonderful for that. And like I said, it gives the dog some control, because I'm going to show you a video and you can see how I want you guys to watch and see how the handler lets the dog work, tries very hard not to have leash pressure on the dog. So, but of course you want to think about safety. So this is one of our dogs, and he's a box destroyer. So we call him Dogzilla. And guess what? We let him do it because that's why it's enriching, because nobody's bossing him around. So sometimes the treat gets caught under a cardboard box flap, and then the dog, goes to town to try to find it. So you do want to be careful and follow the guidance of your behavior staff if you have some. Because you would probably not want to do canine nose work as an enrichment activity with a resource garter. You might want to, be careful of that, because we don't know these dogs, and you don't want to stick your hand in the box when their head's in the box. Super shy dogs benefit from this because they start to understand and gain confidence. Crazy dogs love it for focus, and it's very good for rehabilitation. So be sure to read the dog's notes. I tend to work with some of the more dogs that don't get taken out a lot, long-term residents. So they really need something to do while they're waiting for their forever home. And dog reactive dogs, sometimes they're harder to work with in other environments, but they're the only dog working the field at a time in a nose work class. So I want to show you what it looks like when you have a dog who has never done nose work before. When it wasn't COVID, we would work inside what's called the classroom at Ventura County Animal Services. But when COVID came, we had to take our show on the road and be outside. It's best to start dogs indoors if you can, so they don't have the competing scents outside, especially for beginners. So when you have a beginner dog, you want to make, whoops, every time I touch my mouse, this thing goes nuts. You want to make it really easy. So we're just putting the boxes in a row, 6 boxes in a row, and we're just going to walk the dog alongside them. Before we start, we audition the dog on the treat, so just to see if they'll even eat it. And then we just gently walk alongside the boxes, and you'll see Daffodil. She's not going to necessarily orient to the boxes. I just want you to see what a beginner dog looks like.
Daffodil's first day of nose work. He's so cute.
And you see here how the handler has stopped walking. And now she's orienting to the boxes, and there's a little head snap. And she got it.
Good job, Daffodil.
So I'll show you that again. So the handler is working very, very hard to not have leash pressure on the dog. The dog has not seen this straight row of boxes before. So you saw she was kind of just looking off. And then the handler just gently stopped at the end of the field, right about here. And instead of pulling on Daffodil or leading her to it, you let the dog discover it for themselves. And that's why it's so enriching. So let's look at that one more time. Or not. Okay.
Daffodil's first day of nose work. He's so cute.
See, there's Daisy paused. And now the dog's coming around on her own. No leash pressure. And hey, what? Nobody said there'd be chicken. Woo!
Found it.
She finds it.
Good job, Daffodil.
All right, cool. So there we have that. And I got to close that. Okay, then the next video I want to show you is one of our residents named Rambo, and this was pre-COVID when we worked inside the classroom. And so we set the boxes up in a more complicated pattern because he was on about probably his 6th or 8th week. We do it every Friday, once a week, and the dogs really remember it. So I'll let you watch this video. And what I want you to watch for is the head snap. So we made the boxes in a configuration where it's like a tower, and the hide is set in the middle. And when the dog first catches the edge of what's known as the scent cone or the odor cone, their head will snap in and they'll try to work it back to the source of the odor, which is the treat. So also you'll see him shake off. And that is very common in nose work, where the dog wants to clear their vomeronasal organ so that they can be fresh for searching again. So let me start this one. This should be entertaining. A closed box tower. Head snap. So it is about letting them solve the problems on their own. Someone had French fries there on the table. So you see the volunteer blocking the box with his foot. And that is to help the dog. I don't really recommend sticking your hand in the box, but we've known this dog because we've run him several times. There's his shake off. Now watch this.
You're such a brilliant boy.
No, the dog doesn't lie.
Under there.
So the dog actually, there was a treat still hidden, and you saw him continue to work the box, but the volunteer took the box away a little bit quickly. So I just want to play that again for you. This should be entertaining. A closed box tower. So loose leash as much as possible. Head snap. Counter surfing, we teach that in nose work pretty well. So we're blocking the box. Sorry about that audio. So he's still working the box, right?
Yes, it is.
Do you need help?
I think you got it.
chewing something.
Shake off.
So that was a nice head snap and shake off. You're such a brilliant boy.
No, the dog doesn't lie.
Under there.
So, that is pretty fun. It would be fun to have you guys to be able to see what you're thinking about all these videos, because I just docked my gallery, but we can do some Q&A at the end. So technically, how do we do this? First of all, you need a search environment. It needs to be a safe place. Indoors is preferable because they're beginners and we don't want them being distracted by the smells in a play yard, for example. It should be enclosed, minimal distractions. Ideally, you just saw Rambo searching in the classroom, which had people coming in and out and people eating lunch, and that's just life in a shelter. So we do the best we can. Safe entrance and exit. We're only going to work one dog at a time. So you have a volunteer who pulls the dog out of their kennel and takes time pottying them around outside before they come to the search area. doing nose work does promote dogs they kind of want to eliminate. So we want to teach them that's an automatic disqualification. You can't go potty in the search field because then it'll be contaminated. Whether you're inside or outside, the search field is the search field. So you don't want to have any loose dogs, of course. And what we do is we pretty much do about 10 to 12 searches per dog. And then we put that dog back and somebody has already pulled the next dog and pottied them. And then we just kind of keep it cycling. The equipment that you guys need to do nose work, boxes. So I have to shop. I have to go on Amazon. It's just part of my volunteer work. No. And you want to have
terrible, Jeannie.
Oh, good. There's someone there. Thank you, Sarah. You want to have non-aversive equipment, of course. We're not trying to teach loose leash walking here. We're trying to let a dog do nose work. It's a completely different paradigm shift, I think, for a lot of people in the world and trainers. We get used to kind of our one-way street. Do this, do that, do this, do that. And with nose work, we got to be humbled. We got to sit back and say, show me what you got. So comfortable gear. You see us using slip leads here. In the old days when we had more staff and more time, we were stopping and putting harnesses on the dogs, but the program kind of morphed to us trying to work as many dogs as possible. So while they are wearing a slip lead, we do our best to keep leash pressure off of the trachea for this. You need some smelly treats, bummer. If your dog is more of a toy reward dog, you know, we can throw tennis balls in and stuff, but in the shelter environment, most dogs will go for treats because it's just so special from anything else they do there. So you need somebody to lead it and set the hides. When you put the treat in the box, that's called setting a hide. And then somebody pulls the dog and you have that person can run the dog through the scent field, but again, they're going to follow them. They're not going to lead the dog. They're not going to go search, search, search. Here it is over here. You know, you have to take yourself out of it. You have to step back and let the dog lead it. And that's why it's enriching, because they get to have some choice. And so I'm very passionate about that. I keep a roster and some materials, which I'll show you. And also belly bands. If a dog has a problem, an issue with a lot of marking, we put a belly band on them, which will discourage them while they're doing nose work. So the setup you need, again, I keep reiterating, you want to potty the dog before they come into the search area. Be really patient with them. Let them sniff around and poo and pee before they come to do nose work, so they're more relaxed. Like I said, if they do potty in the search field, we immediately take them out and they lose their turn. And it actually works. They do learn that to hold it from that. If we kept running them, they would never really understand that. So again, we kind of check the dog out, audition them. Do they like this treat? Okay, this is the treat we're going to be hiding. And then you just set up a really easy set. So one box is more or less the dirty box. And then you move that box around, kind of like playing the shell game. And you want to make sure you have no other dogs in the search area. Safety first, reiterating that again. Run dogs that are selected by your behavior staff. They will know which dogs need this type of enrichment and which maybe not as well suited. One dog at a time. You should train with a team, not alone. I think that would be very hard to do alone. We're doing this on leash. If you have a play yard and a dog that starts to progress through the weeks, you might be able to do some off-leash searching in a play yard. But for the most part, we do it on leash in the classroom or in the parking lot when it's COVID. And you want to kind of make sure you watch out for dogs with body handling issues, stress reactivity, aversion to a collar grab, and all sorts of stuff like that. And primarily resource guarding, because that's what we're teaching them to go and do, is find a resource. This dog in this photo is named Cowboy. He was the first dog that I ran in 2015 when I started the program at Ventura County Animal Services. And he was a very unfocused dog. Everybody said, I said, okay, who should we run, volunteers? Because I didn't know. It's my first day there. And they're like, Cowboy, he's so crazy. And we brought him in, sure enough, into the classroom, and he jumped on the counter and was clawing at the blinds and everything. But then we got him and showed him some nose work, and he became the best dog I've ever run in nose work. And here he's finding birch, not just a treat, but the target scent of birch on a animal control vehicle. So there's some rules for handlers. No obedience. I keep saying that, but you guys can do it. I know you can. We just get so in our habit of trying to get the dogs adopted and getting skills on them. But for nose work, no obedience. Don't lead the dog. Don't boss the dog around. Follow the dog. Trust him. Give him some choice. Keep a loose leash if you can. Try not to use any aversive equipment, and learn from the dog. Just relax and learn. It's neutral, it's not a race. And if the dog's having trouble finding it, then you would manipulate the environment to make it easier. For example, we wouldn't take a beginner dog like Daffodil in that video and go back and do that stacked box that Rambo did. She would have failed. It's very easy to get the dog to fail, and that's not what we want. We want them to have fun and enjoy it. So we always want to make sure we back up and pretty much train before we test. So you guys are the student in this, and you will start to learn from the dog. Here's
Hey,
Roy.
Jeannie, can I back you up to that slide real fast?
Oh, thank you. I love that. Back me up.
So on here, your first thing, it says no obedience. That means before, during, and after.
Yes.
So does that mean from the time you exit a kennel, from the time you enter the field? Like at what point does that?
I think
do you
that is
just
a
kind of let
great
it go?
question. I think it's a great question. And we pretty much just get the dog out of the kennel. They're pulling, they're doing whatever. We get them to the potty area. We pretty much just let them drive the whole thing. I think that the dogs do maybe some kennel skills and stuff with other programs, but for nose work, we just get them out and start letting them get into their headset about finding scent and searching. And what happens when you have a dog that's really used to doing operant behaviors, meaning sit, stay, come down, they will constantly look to the handler for the handler to tell them what to do. And we want nose work dogs to be like, yeah, whatever. And they do their thing. So the answer is we pretty much don't do any obedience. And when the dog gets to the search field, they don't pull at all. They're having fun working. Does that answer your question, Sarah?
Yes, thank you.
It's just a different activity. I'm sure there's times when you do your mutt manners or your pack walks or your clicker training and stuff like that. But for nose work, it's really about the getting out of the paradigm of bossing the dog around and letting the dog have choice and drive it. Okay. If we're ready for that, moving on a little bit, we have Roy, and he is, this is just a quickie. It's not his first day. He knows exactly what he's doing. Boom. So when you're setting up the hides, you want to think about setting that dog up for success. Like I was saying earlier, it's easy to make a really hard set and see if the dog can find it. The dog will quickly just walk away because you have to build up to harder and harder hide setting. So you want to think about, if you have a beginner dog like Daffodil, if you just have a row of boxes and you're just casually walking past it and she's like, what was that? Then she starts to say, these boxes are relevant. This is a context cue now. So you want to train the dog before you test them, is my point. Don't set too hard of hides to see if you can trick the dog. We're trying to let the dog have some fun finding a primary reward. So it's nice to take your time and, first you start with the boxes in a straight row, then you kind of kick them out to an array where they're all messy. And over a couple of weeks, then maybe you make them higher. Maybe you hide the treat inside a box, but all of that happens over time. The first day, you just want the dog to see how fun it is to find the treat in a box. And so the rules for the hide setting is keep it err on the side of making it easier so the dog will be successful. Don't point out the hide. Don't drag the dog to it. That would be us taking over. We want the dog to drive this, and that's why it's enriching. So as time goes on, you're going to add more boxes and difficulty with height and closed boxes, etc.
So this seems like something that's not just good for dogs that are reactive, but maybe dogs that don't have any confidence.
Very
Um,
much so. I love that you said that. We had, gosh, I wish Colleen was, who, I can't remember the name of this little dog who was shaking to death. It was a little teeny pocket pitty, and she was shaking and shaking and shaking, and she was just standing there with her tail tucked and her head down, and we were patient, and over time she became the best little searcher. So it's not just for reactive dogs, it's for shy dogs, it's for drivey dogs, it's for persistent dogs, it's really for every type of dog, because their primary skill is using their nose. You know, if you do any research on how unbelievably strong their sense of smell is, it's much stronger than sight for them. So sometimes when people watch nose work, they're all, oh, he saw it. But actually that's not their primary sense. Their noses are unbelievably powerful. I mean, we know that they can smell, you know, cancer and sniff out unbelievable things in a football field sized stadium. So it is good for all the temperaments. So I want to show you this dog, Logan. An excellent volunteer, Colleen Scott, is running him. And I want you to watch how it's like a dance they're doing. She tries to stay out of his way and follow him and let him lead and try to keep as much slack in the leash as possible. This is excellent. Let me show you that again. Whoops, advance to the next one. He pulls unbearably from the kennel, but look at him here. Because they pull because they want to go party and nose work, really. There he goes. So you didn't see her saying, you know, pointing to it, saying search and pulling him over to it. She let him lead it. And that is, I can't stress it enough. All right, let's watch another one. Avoiding leash pressure again and letting him work. Head snap. Did he find it? She probably got dizzy on that one. And done. So I'd like to run this one more time just so you can see. It takes a great deal of technique. This guy is really strong, hard to get out of his kennel. He will pull to get to this activity, and then he will pancake when his turn is over because he doesn't want to stop. But we didn't film that. I just want to show you again some really nice handling. He's not a beginner, so we have a million boxes out and they're everywhere. We would not set this up for a beginner.
Jeannie, there's a question of, do you praise the dog after they've found the treat?
Oh, that's a nice question. No, we don't, because it's not about us trying to teach him something. He's getting a self-reward. So it's about him or her, the dog, showing us how they search. They don't really need praise for it because it's not like we're trying to teach a sit, stay, good stay. He's self-rewarding. So that's actually a lot more powerful than human praise. I mean, you can talk if you want to, we just don't, it's not necessary. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's why I keep trying to say, this is a completely different mindset than pretty much anything else we do, because we're letting the dog drive it. And the only thing we say is search. And that's really more just so that we can have something to say. It's still kind of a command, but the dog doesn't need that. Once they understand the game, every week they look really forward to it. And that keeps us coming back every week because we want to make sure our guys get out and do their nose work.
And
Yes.
sorry.
No, I love it.
So one of the things that maybe is a question, I know Alicia's kind of alluded to it in chat, is like, you're a trainer, so you have this knowledge and this skill set, and it may be intimidating for volunteers to want to start this program. Do you have some advice? I know you included in your slides a list of here's what you need.
Yeah, I think it will come organically once you start. It does help to have a nose work instructor or do some kind of studying, but you don't have to. If you follow the rules and let the dog drive it, you're going to expand your knowledge so fast. Like in this slide, I'm joking, like, channel your, behavior geek, because even if you don't know anything about nose work and you set the boxes up in a row and you run a dog, you'll start to see patterns like, oh, their head snapped. That must be where he caught the scent. Is he having fun? What does it look like when they catch the scent? You'll start to see, just as an observer, changes in behavior. You don't need to be a trainer for that. Some dogs, they get so excited when they start to catch the scent, their tail will wag really fast. And none of it's really necessary. The only thing that's necessary is that the dog gets to go searching. You don't have to know so much about odor and how it flows in order to enrich dogs with nose work. I'm trying to just give you the structure because it works really well. For example, if you went out and made a box tower and the treat was hidden in the middle and the dog's like, what do you want me to do with this? I'm trying to give a structure so that you can make them succeed. So you just start with a few boxes on the floor and just walk past them. And then you can make it harder over time. You don't need to be a trainer because we're not training anything. The dog is training us how they like to search and how enriching it is for them to do searches. So I hope that can kind of take the pressure off. Honestly, all you need is some treats, a box, and a dog and a leash. And your dog will get enriched, I promise.
That leads into the next question. I know you mentioned using chicken, and some shelters have limits to the treats that they use, but you also have like a special genie treat.
I do. Yeah. Well, this will really prove me to be a total geek to people. When we first started this, I made liver cakes. There's a recipe for, it's like, it's made with either beef liver or chicken, and it makes like a big bread, and you can cube it up. And so that is good because it's not goopy. I use chicken as kind of a thing for a high value reinforcer, but it's not really good. I mean, it would work fine, but the boxes would get really messy and they'd all be contaminated with smell. So you really wouldn't use chicken as much. Whatever the shelter will allow, use the highest value of that. So if it's jerky strips and cut them into small pieces, I use this product called Happy Howie log, like Howie, like Howard. And we cube that up. And it's like a meat log, but it's not crumbly. So you want something that it's grain-free and nutritious. So the staff lets me use that because it's not known to, they don't get diarrhea or something like that from it. So if your shelter, I mean, some dogs will probably, search for a piece of kibble if that's all that's allowed. So just do the best with what your structure and your rules are.
Perfect. Thank you.
So you're going to be a geek if you're not already. So you're going to just watch the dog and how they work. So that's what's different. You're just watching and someone's safely running the dog on a leash. So when do you think they first caught the scent? Did you see back on that Rambo video, which I can go back and play, where his head snapped? That's where he first caught the scent. So what? It's just fun to know. It's not really part of anything. The dog's just going to be searching around, but you'll start to really, if you like watching dog behavior, this becomes addicting. So the change in behavior, some dogs they get there and they get very kinetic and they're working and they're working, and other dogs are very methodical. They check each box. So it's just kind of fun to learn about the personality of the dog while you're helping them gain confidence and do something fun that's natural for them that they don't have to be trained to do. They know how to sniff, search, and hunt. So they'll teach you if you let them. All right, did my cursor go away? There it is. Okay, here's again, Cowboy. He unfortunately was at that shelter for more than a year. And so he progressed to not just finding the primary scent, but the first target odor of the sport, which is birch, which is a little Q-tip of birch inside a tin that was magnetic that we put on the shelter vehicle. And you'll see him drive straight to it, start working the vehicle, and then boom, he'll go straight in, and that's when he catches the scent of it, which is really honest. Oh goodness, really neither here nor there, but it's fun for behavior geeks. Boom.
Yes, good boy.
So yeah, I did praise because I was so excited. So you can still be yourself. You don't have to be, you know. I'll show you that again. Boom.
Yes, good boy. That's it.
And so in that particular setup, he got the scent of birch, and then I came in and rewarded him. So that's all like a bit more advanced. You can certainly run this program with just them hitting a primary reward and never using birch, but there is a way to continue to challenge the dogs if need be. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to run that again, but apparently I am.
Yes, good boy.
Okay, so fun stuff to help promote dogs available for adoption. Kennel stickers. These are cool. You can say, I'm learning to use nose work, and you can print these out on sticker stuff, and you can put them on the dog's runs. You know, when the public is allowed to come back and walk around the shelter, it's kind of fun to have your dogs stick out, if you will, by doing something, by showing that they do something fun. And then this is the certificate. You could have the dog's name is a Nosework Shelter Project graduate, and you could laminate that. I mean, there's just some kind of fun stuff you could do if you want to. I keep track of all the dogs. Each week we put the kennel number, where to go find them, the dog's name, their breed, how many classes they've had, and any notes. Like some of them are like, so great, or shy and timid, or any important notes. And then each week we work from this and create a new one.
Jeannie, can I ask another question about your
Please.
roster? How long are sessions per dog? Like if a volunteer, a group of volunteers said, we want to do this 1 hour a week, how many dogs can they expect to run through in that time?
I love it. That's the greatest question ever. They could probably do, you know, in the beginning, it'll probably be maybe around 4 or so, because you have to potty them, and then you bring them to do searches. And maybe we usually keep track and do 12 searches per dog. If the dog is tolerating it, you know, it's going to be different by each dog. We don't want to keep trying to make them search if they get exhausted and it becomes aversive. In my program, Colleen and I run 2 hours. We go from 2 to 4, and we typically do about 8 dogs. But sometimes if you have more volunteers to pull dogs and potty them, they can be sort of on deck, you know? So they can be brought to the search field after the searching dog leaves. So it's safety one at a time, but you know, maybe 4 or 5 dogs in 1 hour. You don't have to do 12 searches either. You could, you know, you could vary it and just kind of see what works with your vibe and your culture and your shelter.
And how many times are you doing it a week?
I'm only doing it once a week. We do Fridays from 2 to 4. And so honestly, I feel like some of these long-term dogs can count and know what day of the week it is, because they're like, Friday, I see the team. And so they get really excited and pull. And then they get to the search field and they're searching only, super slow. I also kept track of like what's going on with the dogs with a spreadsheet. You don't have to do any of this. I just found these tools to help me as I started the program because I didn't really have a template for it. So I would say the dog's name, the breed, and then what happened to them. Some dogs go into quarantine, you know, if they get a bite or something during the week, then you can't run them, or some get adopted who've been in your program, some get transferred. So it was just kind of like, where the heck is Libby? Oh, she went to foster, that sort of thing. So I just thought I would share that with you in case you want to have a way to kind of keep track of, because we set the hides harder and harder each week. And so we want to know how many classes a dog has had in case we forget. Like if we wouldn't do a straight row for Rambo when he's been there for 16 weeks, but so we just kind of keep track that way. And then just to end it up here, just again to reiterate the tips for doing this, make it easy, follow the dog, don't lead them. No obedience because they know how to sniff. So we don't mark when they hit the odor. We don't click or anything because we don't want the dog to be into that operant mindset. We want them to flourish and show how they like to search. So we're quiet usually. Keep your loose leash, one dog at a time. Be patient, stay humble, have fun while you're staying safe. That's just my stuff. There are some blogs about this. I'm a blogger on Ian Dunbar's website, Dog Star Daily. So I've written a few blogs there as well as on my own website. So I have links here if you get the presentation. Here are some references from the National Association of Canine Scent Work. So you can learn more about it and about the shelter project that they started it and they taught me how to do it. And I brought it to my local shelter. So happy sniffing, my friends. Happy to help you with any questions. You can also email me at jeannie@doggenie.com. I think I'll stop my share now unless you guys wanted to go back and see something.
So there's a really good question in the chat. Why do you hold on to the dog's leash inside the classroom? Could you set up a room and drop the leash when you arrive?
Well, basically so that they don't run around and pee on things, and to keep them engaged in searching. These dogs, some of them have never been indoors. They could have been taken from a stray that was left outside. So in the classroom, sometimes people are eating lunch. And we want to keep the dog into the activity. It's way too much freedom for shelter dogs, I think, to just let them go around the room, because especially if it's their first day, they're not going to orient to the boxes unless you're standing there gently holding them.
Perfect, thank you. And then I had another question too. So one of the things that I really love about this is that bringing the options to the dog and letting them have choices and really trying to bring some joy into what potentially is a just really stressful environment for them 24/7. Do you ever find that there's dogs that don't like nose work, where it makes them maybe more stressed or they just aren't benefiting from it?
That's a great question. And I would say no, because we're not bossing them around. So it's natural for them to smell a lot of smells, and getting a fun treat in the shelter environment is, not something that happens every day. So trying to think, if they have a lot of anxiety, it'll take longer, but then they'll be your biggest triumph. So some anxious dogs, it feels like they're not into it, but it's because they're scared to death to be inside this room with people staring at them. So we just take time, let it happen over time. I think, if you think about when you're teaching skills like sit, stay, come down, loose leash walking, all that stuff, that's you driving it. And so the dog will respond in one way or another. But for this activity, again, the dog is getting to do what they do best. It's win-win.
Thanks, Jeannie. I have another question.
Oh, I'm so glad. I love questions. Yay.
So if I was a volunteer at a shelter and I wanted to start doing this, it seems like as long as the shelter allows treats and allows volunteers to walk dogs,
Yeah.
that you wouldn't necessarily need any kind of other permission, right? It seems
No, I
really
mean, you need some boxes. I can help you with that. I'll shop for you. Just kidding. Yeah, all you need are, I guess, I know that different shelters have different rules and because the dogs could have sensitive stomachs. So if we come across a dog that wants our team wants to put in the nose work program, but they're on a special diet, we'll use their special diet food as the hide.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to think, some of the shelters that house dogs have pretty strict or no limited volunteer permissions, I guess I would say. And so
Okay.
I'm just trying to think, like, this seems to me like one of the easiest types of enrichment to start offering.
Yeah, because there's not really a lot of handling. I mean, as long as somebody can hold on to the dog, once the dog starts to know that they're doing searches, it's not like you're going for a walk off site and it's dangerous. You have a dog getting to use its nose in a room, and it's win-win because it exhausts them mentally. Like I said, if you take the SATs or the law school test or some hard test, you come home and you're like, "Wah!" and you didn't do any cardio. And so it is good for shelters that maybe don't have as much interaction allowed, because it's win-win, because the dog will be tired and enriched and get out of the kennel for a little bit and do what they do best.
Awesome. Thank you. There's another question here. Are Easy Walk harnesses okay to use in the scent field?
Love it. Love it. Love it. When I first started, I had a bunch of interns helping me, which was a blessing, I'll say. And they would take the time, because the behavior staff would not give us a dog with body handling issues. So it's like, okay, go take Roxy, and my team would, get her Easy Walk on and lead that way. I prefer, harnesses and much, much, much more so than just slip leads. But sometimes that's all we have, and you don't have enough time for people to potty the dog and gear the dog up, or you have to make sure the gear is fitted, then you got to go find some. So I would say yes, 100% use a harness if you can.
And what about hot dogs? I know my shelter, we use Vienna sausages for a lot of things.
That's great. They'll get, the box will get kind of dirty, but you can always switch out the boxes. Anything that's fun and new for the dog. I mean, gosh, they're in a shelter. Let's give them as much leeway as we can.
Yeah, it's one of my things I've been thinking about a lot recently, is just bringing joy to them.
Yeah. And it's joyful because we're not bossing them around. They are going like, what? There's a hot dog in this box? Set it again. It's fun. Like, it's having a fun game.
Fantastic. Just wanted to see if there's any more questions. We're just about at an hour. Thank you so much, Jeannie, for joining us this morning.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. And I really hope that that some of you guys can get this started and at your shelters.
And what's your website, if anybody wants to try and find you and ask more questions?
My website, I could put it in the chat. It's doggenie.com. Let me see if I can actually type. And you can find me there. And there's some good blogs. Go out on Dogstar Daily and search for nose work, or I think I have a couple on my website too. They may not necessarily just be about shelter dogs, but we adapt the program to shelter dogs because it is such an easy, fun thing for them. And I really appreciate all you guys coming this morning and being such dedicated volunteers, and happy Volunteer Appreciation Week.
Thank you, Jeannie, for all you give to the pets and the people in your community. We're so thankful that you took the time to share with us this morning. I know it's early out in California.
Yeah, well, I'm an early bird, so it's my pleasure very much. Thank you so much.
All right, everyone, have a wonderful afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and have a great week.